All right. Put your seatbelts on, guys, because I've got no idea what we're about to experience, but I know that it's going to be different. It could even get a bit angry. So, we have a guest preacher today. I better pray for her, I think. Father, we just lift Deb up to you this morning. We thank you for what she has for us. And Lord, no doubt it will be prophetic, it will be pointed, it will be timely. But Father, we ask that you'd speak through her, that Lord, we'd be in a place to receive. So we bless her and we ask that you'd come. Amen.
I'm on. Can't believe I'm doing this. It's been a very long time, but last week there was a prophetic word about having a voice. I've got to turn this down. Look, you know, last time I preached, I held a hand mic and I used papers, and I'm finding I'm going to be a little bit claustrophobic today because of this thing I have to keep to. I want you to say to the person next to you something that's been annoying you lately, but nothing to do with them. It must not be anything to do with them. So I want you to say to the person next to you something that's been annoying you lately. Some of you need to move a little bit closer to say that. Okay. I have found that I find myself saying that I am annoyed, I am bothered, I am getting a bit sick of things, I am agitated, but there is one word that I think that I'm not meant to say, and that's the word, what's all this noise happening? It's me, Holy Spirit. One thing that we're not meant to say, I think, is that, I can't stand that noise. It's annoying, isn't it? What can I do with it? It's making me very angry. Is I'm not meant to say, I can't do this, I'll have to hold it. Can I hold a mic? Oh, if I don't move. Is it my earring?
We have technical issues, guys.
We have major technical issues. But I've got to hurry up and get on with this.
We should have known this was going to happen, shouldn't we?
We should have known.
Yes.
Can I take this off?
Can we turn that one off, Richard?
Richard?
It's all the jewellery and all the stuff hanging off her. Can we have everything?
Yes, it's all coming.
Can I just say that you were the topic of my discussion with Andrew just a second ago?
Oh, that will be better. The word that we're not meant to say is that word up there, anger. There it is, anger. And I thought I could make that really big print, make it really angry, or I could make it a little white print, but I chose to do it in red because anger is what I want to talk about, because I think as Christians, we feel that we're not meant to get angry. We're meant to just turn the other cheek and be a doormat and do all of that stuff. In 1 Thessalonians 5:19, it says, do not put out the Spirit's fire. Hang on, I've got to do this for the first time. There it goes. There, the first time. Yay! It says, get rid of all bitterness, rage. God forgave you. So we've got to get rid of that. Next one, Psalm 37 Psalm 37 verse 8. Cease from anger. Cease from anger. Next one, Matthew 5:22. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with his brother will be subject to judgment. In your anger, do not sin. Does that mean we're allowed to be angry? Or does that just mean, well, we're going to get angry? Another one, Ephesians. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and don't give the devil a foothold. Now, I've been reading a book. I bought it many years ago, and it's called Overcoming Hurts and Anger. And the title of the book made me think, do the two go together? Overcoming hurts and anger. I bought it quite a few years ago. I read it quite a few years ago. And I read it again just a couple of months ago. So I thought either this is a word for the church or it's a word for me. Because some of you might know I've been coming a little bit testy and angry. So I thought I'd better do something about it. And this is what the writer of this book, Dwight Carlson, says. He says, anger in itself is neutral. It's not right nor wrong, nor appropriate or inappropriate, holy or sinful. But it is what the anger is based on and how anger is expressed that determines whether the anger is right or wrong. Anger may be used constructively or destructively. We're all going to be angry. The only way we could not be angry in this life is to go onto a deserted island and be by ourselves. Now, I don't know if you've watched that movie Castaway with Tom Hanks. That was a great movie, and we just watched part of it recently again. We flicked on the telly and it was on. And it was just like he said, he was on a deserted island on his own. There was not a soul on the island. It's a very good movie. I'm really going to wreck it for you, but it's well worth watching. And he was angry that he was there. There was no one there to bug him. There were bugs and there were snakes, and there was no one to talk to. But he did gain a friend, and his friend was a volleyball that had been washed up on the beach, and his name was Wilson. And I'm sure Wilson tennis balls and volleyballs paid a lot of money to have his name as Wilson on that movie. And poor old Wilson, I can't remember Tom Hanks' name because it was never really used much in the movie. He was on his own. But he cut his hand and it was covered in blood. And he picked up the ball and he put his hand on the volleyball, and so it made a face like the palm of his hand, and his fingers were the hair. And so Wilson became his friend. And you know what? He even fought with Wilson. He was so distraught being on this island. Poor old Wilson, the volleyball, got attacked and argued with. He'd look at him, and he would even, I'll have to call him Tom Hanks, Tom would argue back at Wilson even though Wilson hadn't said anything. Eventually, Wilson gets washed away in the ocean. It's very sad and traumatic. And it's, Wilson, come back, come back. But it was so sad that he had to make a friend, but he still fought with this ball, this volleyball. Conflict in our life isn't going to be about, I don't want it in my life. You'd have to be Tom Hanks going onto that island. But you would still be fighting with the bugs and the cyclones and the sharks, and you would still be fighting for those that didn't come and rescue you. You'd fight with the ball, you'd fight with the coconut, you'd fight with anything. If you were there, you couldn't have emails, you couldn't have your cell phone. Anger is always going to be around us, but it's always going to be about what we do with it. And we can be very agitated, we can be very aggressive, but I've got to stick to this, and I hate this thing. Hang on, I've got to... Where am I up to? I'll just talk to you about Moses. Remember, Moses went up onto the mountain, and he come back with the tablets. And Aaron and do you know there were 1 million Israelites that had been traipsing around that desert? When we watch the show, The 10 Commandments on TV, there were actually 1 million Israelites. So Moses goes up onto Mount Sinai and he comes down with these tablets with the 10 Commandments written on it. Fantastic. Comes down, there's this golden calf made. All the people wanted another god. They were sick of waiting. So they melt all the gold, all the earrings, all the necklaces, and they make this golden calf. Moses comes down and he's angry. He throws down the tablets and they smash into lots of pieces, and I think that's where the word mosaic comes from. But, you know, Aaron should have been angry at those millions of people saying, let's make ourselves another god. There is always anger. Was Christ angry? What about when he went into the temple with the money changers? The money changers used to take the currency of the people that used to come into the temple, and they'd rip them off. The money changers would say, oh, your money is worth less than what it was the other day. It sounds like our money, doesn't it? And they would give them less temple tax money. And Jesus was angry. Jesus went in with a whip. He turned over the tables and he was angry. So the point that I'm trying to make here is, I think it's okay to be angry. I think it's okay to have a righteous anger, but not a fleshly anger. I remember one night Rob and I had an argument. Rob's a very headstrong person, and I am a very headstrong person. And I remember it was about 20 years ago, but I remember the night. And I can tell you, it was 6:45 in the evening, and I had to go for a big long walk around the block. And we lived in Coromandel Valley, and that was a big block. And we went up here. I went uphill and down dale, and I was crying and I was ranting and I was yelling and I was saying, God, this is not fair. This is not fair. I can't even remember what the issue was, but I knew that it wasn't fair. And I eventually come back inside, and there's Rob sitting there. This is how I know it was like 7:15 now, watching Sale of the Century, trying to get all the answers. And he's sitting there, oblivious to the whole fact that I just about wanted to destroy my life. He's sitting there with his feet on the the ottoman. He's got his feet on the ottoman, and he looks at me, and I don't think he even knew if I'd been anywhere. And all I could find myself to say to diffuse the situation was, would you like a cup of coffee? I felt like I had to serve him in some way, to make that anger simmer down a bit. And of course he said, oh yes, that would be lovely. This is very important. This is what this fellow wrote in the book. And this is something I want you to take home today. Anger itself is actually a secondary feeling. So when you're angry, don't leave it there. It's a secondary feeling. It's a reaction to something, to an insult, to a threat, to a response, to frustration. The primary feeling is usually hurt, intimidation, belittlement, fear, or frustration. So I know for years I said, Lord, I'm sorry, I repent of my anger. Lord, I'm sorry, I repent of my anger. Lord, I'm sorry, I repent of my anger. And the anger just did not go away because I wasn't digging into this, to what is the root of my anger. What is it? What is the root of what is simmering with you? There's something that's going to be simmering there, and you have to deal with that. And that's when you take it to Jesus. Now, I know that looking around this room, I know there's people in this room that have had some horrible, horrible things happen to them. I know some of you have come from overseas and you've literally escaped your country, and you've seen horrendous things. I know that some of you have been in our lucky country, our blessed country, and it hasn't been all good for you. So I'm not saying that anger is just put it away, it's like, how bad of you. I'm saying deal with the stuff that's happened to you. The anger comes like later. Deal with that first of all. And you know what? We're all seeing therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists because we're living in this world of billions of people, and some of us don't even have a friend. Be a friend to somebody. We're seeing therapists all the time now because we don't have a deep, close friend, and that's what we need. But we need to be able to talk about our issues, and I'm going to talk about confrontation and care fronting. So let's move along here. There are lots of misconceptions about anger. If you don't look, feel or seem angry, you don't have an anger problem. Well, we all know that that's not true. We all know people that are quite happy and la-di-da, and underneath there's something seething there, like a volcano waiting to erupt. If you ignore your hurts and anger, they'll go away and won't cause you any trouble. Well, they could actually be causing people around you to have trouble because you might be venting sideways at them. 3, just let all your feelings and anger hang out. Just get them out of your system and you'll solve your anger problems. Well, it's the same for the dog gets kicked or whatever's going to happen. You're going to let all that anger and frustration out, but it's going to generally be with the people that you love most. You know, how many of us go home and we say, oh, it's so good to be home, I can be myself. You know, I've had to be like this fake person all day being nice and polite and hello, how are you? And yes, I can do that for you. And you get home and you're just angry and you're bothered and the poor person that you live with cops it. It won't cost me too much emotionally to be a nice person who never gets angry at anybody. Well, I don't know if you know those people. Some of them can be quite sickly sweet. And some of it's actually saccharine. We have to be real. We claim to be a real church here. So we've got to get real. And if you've got some anger there, that's okay. But you can't stay bogged in your anger. You have to move on. Anger can be divided into 2. Anger in. So this anger is marked by feelings of hostility, of an attitude of ill will and aggressiveness, and turns inwardly upon ourselves. Been there, done some of that. Anger out. Anger out is marked by feelings of anger, hostility or aggressiveness, but expressed externally. Been there, done that. If there was a third sort, that would be me too. Some reasons we're reluctant to express feelings of anger are, here we go, a fear of retaliation, fear of rejection, fear of hurting others, a sense of it won't change anything. It's very uncomfortable for both sides, and generally it is. Some people get so much praise for being so nice, they don't want to lose that image. Many people have been taught that standing up to others is wrong. They think that nice, religious people always accept things meekly. 8, some people have only seen confrontation carried out in an aggressive way. 9, some people have never learnt how to handle anger properly. Some people live with large amounts of unresolved anger and are continually hovering around boiling point. And confrontation may and probably will cause an eruption. So, these are... Okay, handling our anger. Number 1, recognise your feelings. So that's not just your feelings of, I feel like my blood is boiling and my jaw has got tight and adrenaline is rushing. You know, adrenaline is for fight or flight or fright. And we're meant to have that. We're meant to have the ability to be able to run or fight. But we're not meant to be living off adrenaline day in, day out. And that's what we're doing these days because we are constantly angry. And so we're always in that constant fight, flight. What am I going to do? How am I going to respond to this person or the same one over and over again? I remembered watching on the ABC one morning, Dr. Carl someone, I can't remember, he always wears these like Hawaiian shirts and things, I can't remember his name. And he was saying about parents and their little kids. And he said that little kids today are living off adrenaline and cortisols flowing through their veins because they're offered childcare so early and picked up so late and there's not time for them really. Yet mum goes to the supermarket and buys some organic bananas and thinks she's doing a great job for little Johnny, you know, but the kids, little kids, are living off adrenaline as are we. We've got to be able to turn off our anger, but first of all, we must find out what's driving that anger. Where do I go with me? Well, I've had like a pretty screwed up background growing up. I remember one time when I was about 6. This is surprising me. It's probably surprising you, Rob. When I was about 6, I got dropped off from my weekend at my dad's and grandparents and back home to Mum, and her boyfriend was there, and whom became my stepfather, and I called him Dad and loved him dearly. But when I was 6, I remember I got dropped off late on Sunday night, so there was literally a punch-up in the street over me getting back late. And I don't know if that was over power and control or worry or whatever it was. But I was in the lounge room, I remembered, and there was all this screaming and carrying on, and a literal punch-up. There's anger. I guess that was taking out the feelings there and then, but I haven't dealt with them, have I, since I was 6 years old? I remember I prayed with someone once who'd been gone through a lot of child abuse, sexual child abuse, and for years and years, generations. Generations later, I said to her, "Were you ever allowed to scream?" And she went, "No, of course not." And I said, "Here's a cushion, I want you to scream." You should have heard that scream of generations. I bet there'd been a lot of anger, but never dealt with at the root of it. So today I'm giving you permission to be angry, but we don't stay bogged in our anger. That would make us revolting people, always angry. Oh, there's Debbie angry again. There is a bit of that with me sometimes, and I'm trying to deal with that. I'm reading books, look, and I'm trying to do studies on not being angry. But we've got to get to the root of what the anger is. So recognise your feelings. Delay taking action. Maybe count to 10 or maybe 100. Pray for guidance. Help, God, what do I do with this? Identify the cause, the true cause of your anger. Evaluate whether your anger is legitimate. Like someone could say to me, "Gee, Deb, you're looking pretty swell. Put on a few kilos there." I could be really angry, but it could really be true as well. So sometimes anger, we have to just suck it up and think, okay, there is an issue here. Determine a course of action. Oh, I'm back to my little clicker thing again. Now we're putting a few of these scriptures together. "Therefore, laying aside falsehood, speak the truth, each one of you, with his neighbour, for we are members of one another. Be angry. Do not sin." There's got to be a real caution in that, because when you're angry, it's very easy to sin. Do not sin. Don't let the sun go down on your anger, and do not give the devil a foothold or an opportunity. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, and forgiving each other. Now, about 20 years ago, there was a course being run in a lot of the churches by Mount Evelyn in Victoria, and it was Search for Significance. And they'd taken it from a book of Robert McGee. And in that course, one of the most precious things I think that I learnt was confrontation or carefrontation. I'm looking at you two, Michael and Jackie. I think that you are both very good at this, at carefrontation. Confrontation is what most of us have experienced and grown up with. Confrontation is actually what mature people do. It's all very well to be quiet and, like Andrew was saying, and I've done that too, be quiet and not get involved. But if you value a relationship with someone, you've really got to talk some of those issues through. Because if you ignore it, it gets worse and worse. We do this in our marriages. Just to keep the peace, we don't say anything. Or if I do say something, there's going to be a big volcanic eruption. But if we can learn carefrontation, this is a wonderful thing. Confrontation is done with hostility, aggression, and you. Carefrontation is done with a gentleness, it's kind, and generally it's I feel this, or maybe it could be good rather than when you do this all the time, and I've done this, I've been a big culprit of doing this, haven't I, Rob? Yeah, always very gracious. Lucky for you. What about when Jesus was with the adulterous woman and they wanted to stone her to death? And he just simply and kindly said, he acknowledged her sin and he said, go and sin no more. He didn't beat her up. He was kind to her. When carefronting, like I said, we need to have I messages. Now, I have to tell you this. This is a little story. Rob and I had an issue. And so for days and days, I very carefully orchestrated what I was going to say. And I said this, like all the books say. I feel that when you... and he said, well, feelings are irrelevant. What are the facts? Oh, my gosh. So that illustration is for you to know that when you do your carefronting and you say, I feel, just be ready maybe for, well, what are the facts? Because although you might be learning to carefront, the person that you're speaking to may never have learnt that. They may only know how to confront. So the aim of carefronting is reconciliation. That's what it is. So many times do we think confrontation is like, well, I'm going to show them, I'm going to tell them I will not be a doormat and I will not be walked over. Besides, they're wrong. That's confrontation, and that's what most of us have experienced all the days of our lives. So there's two things I want you to take away today. One is to know that anger is a secondary response to the issue. Find out what the issue is, even if you were 6, like I just surprisingly welled up a bit. Find out what the issues are and learn how to carefront, because it's for reconciliation. It's not for accusation or pointing out wrongs. And we need to remember that usually we're not 100% right, and they're not 100% wrong. There is always a mixture. We need to practice empathy. Try walking in their shoes. If you know a little bit about them, and we do know a little bit about most people, just try walking in their shoes and being a little bit kinder. Hurting people hurt people. We know that, don't we? But are you the hurting person? There's a question to be asking ourselves. Am I the hurting person? I just want to go back here, find something that I have missed. This is what this Dwight said. I was quite impressed with his book. Apparently, a study showed that a loved one is the target of people's anger 30% of the time. Is that because they can't escape? Is that because they signed on the dotted line or they live in the house? 25% of anger is directed towards someone well known and liked. Oh, that's fun. 25% is towards an acquaintance. This is how we direct our anger. 10% is to the person is well known to them but disliked. And 10% of the time is towards someone unknown. So when you're in the checkout at the supermarket and they snap and snarl at you or carry on, maybe you're just being there 10% that day. So just remember that and don't take it personally. How about this, Acts 7:60? When Stephen was being stoned for his faith, he prayed, Lord, don't hold this sin against them. My goodness. My name is not Stephen. I would like to be like Stephen one day. I think sometimes when we are confronted with issues, God gives us a grace. But sometimes we've got to stand firm first with our knees not shaking. We're coming into end soon, I think. We have to do this. I know I've talked about anger. I know I've said it's okay to be angry. It is okay to be angry, but it's not okay to stay bogged in your anger. Deal with the issues. Forgive one another. Up here in the Amplified Version, I've got, if you do not forgive others their trespasses, their reckless and their willful sins, leaving them letting go, giving up resentment, neither will your Father forgive you your trespasses. It's pretty hard, isn't it? Now, I've stood out here and said, oh, I can forgive and I'm over my anger, and I can tell you it took me 10 years to forgive somebody. And I was saying, I forgive them, I forgive them, I forgive them. But those 3 words might as well have been apple, cat, and seat, because they actually were just 3 empty words. I forgive them, I forgive them, I forgive them. And I can't really tell you exactly what it was that helped me to forgive them, but I have forgiven them, because I can see I'm smiling. And that doesn't mean I'd let them ever do it again. And that isn't what forgiveness means either. And anger is to say, something's wrong here. When we forgive, it doesn't mean we're going to let them get off scot-free again. We will carefront and we will forgive them. And there was this, I read this years ago. I'm coming to an end. It says, feel the other's point of view. And I think if we can get this, and this has really helped me, because people are so different from one another, this is a good thing to remember. This was written by Bob Berg. The 16th US President, Abraham Lincoln, was one of the most tactful people and effective positive persuaders of all time. When he was on the Illinois law circuit, he often scored big points with judges and juries by using one very simple method of persuasion. He pointed out the other side's case before his own. He expounded on the feasibility of his opponent's views, and he allowed everyone to see him as honest, fair, and genuinely concerned with justice for all. This is an excellent idea whenever you are engaged in a disagreement with someone, either one-on-one or within a group of conflicting ideas. The more you can point out the legitimacy of the other's views, the more accepting they'll be of yours. So, suggestion, go even one step further. Actually take the other person's point of view. Take ownership of their position. See the situation as you believe they see it. Feel it as you believe they feel it. Put yourself in their shoes and in their mind. Imagine it's you who feels that way, and in your mind, make your case. Then, as mentioned earlier, make their case out loud. One of 2 things will happen. 1, you'll ooze with credibility and open up this person's heart to being totally receptive to your point of view as well. 2, you'll possibly discover that you're not 100% correct, and dare I say even wrong, and have learned something extremely valuable. Yes, actually feel their point of view and make their case before making your own. Get into the habit of doing this on a regular basis and you'll become a winning without intimidation machine. If we can do that, there will be less strife, I'm sure. There will be less reason to be angry at one another. And we are so diverse. We are so diverse. Some of us see things black and some of us see things white. And there's all different shades in the middle. Some of us are extroverts. Some of us are introverts. We are all so different. So, today, when you go home, remember, anger is secondary. Find out what number 1 is. What's driving that thing so you can release that anger and talk to God about it. He wants to hear it. Then you won't need all your therapists. Cast all your burdens on him because he cares for you. He sent us the counselor That's not the one on Marion Road. He sent us the Counselor, who is the Holy Spirit right within you. And then learn to listen to other people's opinions, see it from their point of view, let them know that you feel and see it, and then you can present yours. So, we have a ministry time now. Corey, can we please, we're doing a new song. It's called At the Cross. It's a wonderful song. I know a place, it's a wonderful place, where accused and condemned find mercy and grace. For the wrongs we have done, and, listen to this bit, and the wrongs done to us were nailed there with him there on the cross. So the things that have been done to us, we can let it go. For years people used to say to me about that 10-year issue I had, let it go, Debbie, let it go. I'm trying to let it go. I'm trying to let it go. Tell me how. This is what I realised. What was done wrong to me has been nailed to the cross. There's nothing else that can happen. If that's not enough, nothing's enough. So, we're going to have a ministry time now.